Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everyone.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer insights and ideas for how emerging small and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can establish and grow their business.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean all aspects involved in establishing and growing brands across channels and platforms. On our show, we bring on guests that are brand founders, leaders, investors, as well as all kinds of suppliers to these emerging brands that are subject matter experts to share their unique insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please follow the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. Let's get to today's episode. Since 1994, the Emerson Group has been the trusted partner to brands, retailers, suppliers, and the CPG industry. Their people are CPG professionals and omnichannel commerce experts. They have built a fully integrated infrastructure with a suite of services and capabilities focused on launching and accelerating the growth of health, wellness, and beauty brands. Powered by their proprietary Omega AI data technology platform, which utilizes a brand's insights and data analytics to create a brand's go-to-market strategy, optimize their omni-channel distribution, build marketing plans, and optimize supply chain. The Emerson Group infrastructure and capabilities serve brands in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. To learn more, visit their website at www.emersongroup.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of The Road to Retail. And there is my good friend, Tracy Priest. Tracy, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Bruce. It's a great day and a great day here at Road to Retail, and I'm excited about our guest. So why don't you tell us who we have today?
Oh, well, kind of like Jeopardy, but even better here on the world's finest emerging brand podcast. We have Reilly, managing partner and CPG practice leader from PeopleSuite Talent Solutions. So Hayes, hello, and thank you for your time. How are you today?
Doing great. Great to be here. It's always great to be a returning champion.
That's right. You and Ken Jennings. So folks, before we jump in and have Hayes give us a little bit of the background, we're going to structure this a tiny bit different today. So Hayes is I'll brag on him for a minute. So Hayes is a very high-end, highly accomplished talent scout for the CPG industry. I've had the pleasure of knowing Hayes for years, and I think you guys will get a lot out of this. So we're going to cover 4 big topics today. The first one is going to be, what does an executive need to do and prepare if they're going to make a transition, whether by choice or the choice is foisted upon you? The second is going to be, we're going to talk about brand leaders who are now, their business is getting traction and they're looking to bring in some quote unquote seasoned talent to their team. What does that do to their dynamic? What might they have to, let go of the reins a little bit when they quote unquote bring adults to the table? Discussion point 3 is we have people all the time, whether it's, I'm sure Hayes gets way more calls, but Tracy and I get calls from executives that want to leave positions at bigger established companies. And, I want to get into a small company where I can really make a difference. Okay. It's a totally different mindset and environment. We're going to talk about that. And then lastly, over the past decade or so, the rise of companies backed by private equity firms has really grown tremendously. So Hayes is going to give us a little color on the kinds of candidates that he's seen be successful there, and also those items you kind of need to roll around in your own head, because it sounds good when you blurt it out one night, and then when you really think about it, it may not be for you. So Hayes, again, welcome. Why don't you give the folks just a little bit of background on who you are, what you've done, and how you got to your current seat, and then we'll roll into those great topics.
Sure. No, it's hard to believe as young as I look. I'm 28 years in the retained executive search industry. And it's been a great journey. It really has. 15 years prior in CPG. Started out in college with Unilever, recruited on campus, was influenced by a professor, Professor Singh, who always did these ivory soap case studies in class. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. Anyway, I interviewed with Lever and Unilever and P&G. P&G didn't want me, but Unilever did. So I was in their sales training program and moved up in the ranks, moved around the country, carried the bag, moved out to Columbus, Ohio when I got recruited by Borden Foods. And I was recruited by a search guy by the name of Larry Lindsay. And he doesn't know this, but he influenced me years later to get into this crazy business, just the way he handled me in that process. So my dad always influenced me to get into a tangible sale company. He was in the life insurance industry his whole career, so you can't get much more tangible than soap and detergents. And had a great run with Borden Foods as well in the food industry. KKR came in 1997 and acquired the company, and I decided to get into the headhunting world there. I joined DHR International at the time, which is a top 10 retained firm founded by a former senior partner at Korn Ferry, and became partner with them after 3 years. And then after 7 years, left to start my own firm. And that's when I really started to get into the consumer healthcare arena in addition to CPG. And then in 2012, I joined Preston and Partners, which is now PeopleSuite. Got to meet Gary Preston, the founder, who was a former CHRO at Ahold. And it's been a great marriage ever since over the last 14 years. And in my career, I've done over 450 executive searches at the SVP, C level, and some director level. And it's just great to be here with you today. And if I can really help folks that are in transition or want to be in transition or want to make sure they're touching all the bases in terms of being on radar screens for search guys and also in network, I think today you'll what we share today will confirm a little bit of what you might already know, but there may be some new things. And if I can help folks in the CPG industry in that regard, I'm happy to do it.
Well, Hayes, we really appreciate you coming, and I have zero doubt this is going to be a juicy discussion. So I can't do the deep voice of the Yankee Stadium guy, but hitting first is Tracy Priest.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump right in. And Hayes, what a great background. And thanks again for being a returning champion. So let's just jump in right away and talk about. So I'm a senior level executive and I'm ready to or looking to maybe make a transition. So talk to us about what does somebody need to do to prepare for that transition? And I think more specifically, talk to our audience about the process and the mindset that you really have to do to start looking at making a transition. What's that process look like, and what do you need to do to prepare?
Sure. No, great question. And like we've all heard, network before you need to, right? That is key here as well, right? And we all remember, Tracy and Bruce and I remember the days where, we were in corporate and we had so much going on with our customers, with our coworkers, with our families, with our communities that we didn't even think to reach out to former employees or for employers and things like that. So you definitely want to network before you have to. 85% of the time, according to the Wall Street Journal, people find the job through someone they know, not through either a headhunter or through a posting. Although doing some chat GPT, which who doesn't, it's the more research I've done on chat GPT on this subject, it's really interesting. Kind of they list the five ways executives can find new gigs, and it's split between headhunters, executive recruiters, and networking, which is kind of interesting. And the more I think about it, the more I think that's about accurate. So about 45% of the time is through a network, 45% of the time roughly is through a headhunter. And the rest of the time is either through a job posting or someone reaches out to you or that kind of thing. So definitely, you want to make sure your network is vast. Make sure you're on LinkedIn. Make sure you have a professional LinkedIn profile, and there are services. And if you can ping me at hayes@peoplesuite.com if you want any help in terms of recommendations, and I can definitely help you with that. But definitely it's setting up time. I just spoke to an executive this week. I said, look, he's at a big company. He's happy, but he's not sure if he's going to be around in the coming months. I mean, there's been a lot of layoffs, and he's like, what should I do? I said, well, you want to set up a time every week to work on you, to work on career, to work on network. And it might be every Tuesday and Thursday for a half hour to start out. And then maybe you expand to an hour, and you go on LinkedIn and you reach out to former bosses of yours throughout your experience. If you look at your resume, you start college and all the way to the present. You write down names of bosses, names of subordinates, and names of peers. And you'll be surprised how many of those folks, I did it myself, how many of those folks you haven't really been in touch with. And there's nothing more magical than reaching out to folks that you haven't spoken to in a while for networking purposes, right? Which is great. The reaching out to executive search consultants is important, and getting someone you know, someone you trust to make that introduction to a Korn Ferry or to a Heidrick and Struggles or to a Spencer Stewart. These are all terrific global firms, and we're a boutique, and there are many really terrific boutique firms as well. But we work primarily headhunters, and this is ChatGPT gets this not quite right. We work for the client, right? We work for the company that pays us. So it's important that, candidates understand that. But and if you're a fit for a particular role that we're working on, we're going to be your best friend. If you're not a fit, then it may be a while before there's a specific item that you'd be a fit for. So it is a little bit of a numbers game. But reaching out and networking to headhunters is critical because the headhunters have access to jobs. And then, of course, reaching out to executives who may have positions for you from a former life, or these executives may be able to recommend executives they know, people in their network, right? So, I mean, Bruce and Tracy know each other well, but there may be three or four people each of them know that are pretty senior that one doesn't know the other. And if an intro happened, it would be a magical thing. At least the person would be open to chatting, right? And this is how the game works. And I have a good friend who just retired, did very well with the company, very well equity wise. He was there 12 years and COO level, and he got the job through a CEO that was really good friends with another friend of his name is Larry. So anyway, so that's in a nutshell, some I think some plans that a person can do to make sure that they're top of mind for recruiters. Content is key on LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn profile is much more important actually than your resume, because if your LinkedIn profile isn't appealing, doesn't have the right keywords, doesn't attract attention, then there's no need to send a resume to anybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So keywords
You
are key. Yeah,
you make a great point about you never know who knows somebody that knows somebody, right?
exactly, exactly. And part of the process is and this again, ChatGPT talks about this, and I agree with in this case, I agree with this, is boy, how about proactively every single week reach out to 15 or 20 people that you don't know that maybe you want to get to know, right? So in other words, you make a list of who are the companies, what are the companies that are ideal for me? They're in my space, they're the right size, they're the right location. How do I find a way into those companies proactively, right? It's not going to happen overnight. But again, there may be an introduction, a side introduction. Someone you know on LinkedIn is connected to the CEO at one of these companies, and you can get an introduction that way. So it's a slog, and people who have done this before tend to be better at it than people who haven't. And I feel bad for people who are, 30 years and they've never had to look for a job, and now they do. But
Right.
um, but this is kind of where we are.
Well, it's a great tip you gave there, Hayes, about networking and stay in touch with all the people you've just crossed paths with over the years. And we all have these people in our lives, whether it's family members or neighbors or professional contacts. Phone lights up, you see their name, and you're like, what does he want? Because he never just checks in.
Right,
Mm,
So
right.
something's
good point.
wrong, you
Well,
know,
yeah, that's yeah. Well, that's a good. Yeah, sure. That you're
or
gonna
you
have.
get the people that say just what you said there at the end, that they've had a job for a long time and they're in a bit of a panic. It's like, hey, you know, I should have been keeping my network warm all these years, but I haven't. So, Bruce, who do you know? Well, I know a lot of people. What are we talking about? So,
Right.
so
Good point.
let's move into the second topic here. So one of the things we hear a lot are, brand leaders that they had an idea, these entrepreneurs and emerging brands, their idea is starting to
Right.
get some traction, they're making some headway, and either they have figured it out themselves, or maybe an investor made a comment, or their board or their advisor says, hey, you know what? You've done a great job getting to this point, but you probably need someone who really knows X, sales, distribution, whatever.
Hmm.
So, what will these brand leaders, Hayes, who've been calling all the shots, what's in their head that they need to say, you know what, if I'm going to go bring in a guy like Hayes Reilly, he's not going to want to have to send me an email every morning of the 5 things he's working on. The guy's a pro. So, how do these people have to adjust their thinking?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, it's key for entrepreneurs to hire people they know, right? And there may be even executive level folks that they need. May be a CFO, there may be an SVP of sales that they really need, but they've been holding back just because of the headcount and because of the cost. But finding people that finding people that will buy into your culture, forget the equity component right now. They've got to love your product. They've got to love your people. They've got to love your vision and mission. I'm not trying to sound hokey, because the equity component, the wealth creation may not ever happen. So if an executive is looking to join a company because it's selling widgets and they don't really care about the product, they don't really care that it's good for you, they don't really care that it's sustainable, all those things, that's not a good thing. And I think CEOs and PE guys, they know that they can negotiate. Like an SVP of sales and in a smaller company for 50 million revenues and less. I mean, a base salary 225, 250, bonus of 25%, and then and a really nice equity plan is pretty standard. Whereas the big global multinational CPGs, it's 75 to 100K more on base usually. Um, and then there's a 50% short-term incentive standard, and then a 35% long-term incentive, which is almost like cash. So there's a reason why a lot of big CPG multinational guys don't jump, right? Because it's very secure in these environments where you'd have to take a cut. Clearly, you're gonna have to take a cut to join a smaller company. But if you're a CEO at a smaller company, emerging company, you have that leverage, right? You say, look, none of us are making a lot right now, but we're going to put our whole heart and soul in this thing, and we hope to have a financial reward in the next 3 to 5 years. But yeah, I mean, I think employee referral plans are really cool, Bruce and Tracy. Even for smaller companies, the reason being, you have employees with you now who love what they do, and they're able to bring their neighbors in. They're able to be an ambassador for your company, and that's always a great thing. The percentages of success when an employee brings another employee in is huge. 1,000 bucks when they start, maybe 1,000 bucks in 6 months, something like that. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but it's more symbolic, and it really, 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 really helps. So, but yeah, and I think the equity component, if you're a CEO of an emerging brand company, you've got to be very straightforward around, hey, this is how it works. This is what we have to do for everyone to make out in this process. And really, according to presidents and CEOs that I've spoken to, that have been in this world, 1 in 10 hit it, right? 1 in 10 of these ventures hit a home run. Um, and 4 out of 10, 3 to 4 out of 10, either a single, double, or triple, and 5 to 6 out of 10, nothing, right? So, you could conceivably work two, three, four, emerging CPG backed companies in a row, and there's never a liquidity event. So those are the things you have to be concerned about. Going back to the first topic too, is the key that you want to be introduced to PE leaders in the CPG space, right? But uh, you've got to make sure you know other executives who can get you in front of these people, because these PE partners are being inundated with resumes, with people, and they would much rather not use someone like, like PeopleSuite or Korn Ferry, or they'd rather find somebody on their own. So I highly recommend, as executives, going directly to the partners, but you've got to do it the right way. You've got to do it in a warm way. You've got to find people that can give you that warm introduction, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So, Hayes, you hit on a lot of good stuff there, especially, understanding that every time you go to a smaller company, it's not going to be a home run. It's not 3 years of hard work and then let's go pick out matching Ferraris. Okay.
Right.
So
It's not going
what,
to be a home. It's
what,
not going to be a home run. So yeah.
yeah,
So
what,
right.
what,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go
Why
ahead.
don't you go ahead? And then I got to follow up here for the witness.
No. So from the candidate side, then you want to make sure that you're buying in to the company, the product, the people, etc. And yeah, because the you can't count on the end game. You can't count on the end game all the time. So
So you made an interesting comment about these entrepreneurs and the founders, like perhaps trying to either hire people they know or people that are like one degree away. So they're coming in from people that they recognize and kind of trust. But when they sit down and maybe they're warm, Hayes is feeling good about Bruce. What traits do you think these leaders are really looking for in these candidates? Before they say we'd like to bring you on, what are those last couple of hurdles they're trying to cross in their mind?
right, yeah. So I went back through my notes, and I had done a survey of big company CPG leaders that I recruited out, that people, myself and PeopleSuite recruited out of big CPG into small, and just to see like why are they successful? Those that were successful, they're not all successful, but those that were successful. And it's a sense of, I looked at it last night again. It's amazing how many, 3 out of 10, the reason why they wanted to leave big CPG is because they wanted to be the lead sales guy in a company, or they wanted to be the lead finance, they wanted to be the CFO, or they wanted to be the SVP of supply chain. So that's a reason why a lot of these a lot of these folks would leave. But I lost my train of thought. But what was the rest of that, Bruce?
Uh,
Question mark.
what's your favorite podcast in the United States about emerging brands? No,
Road
the
Trip.
question was
Road
the
Trip.
question was, what traits are these founders looking for at the last moment? So if you're the founder and you're interviewing me and you
That's it.
feel pretty good, what are those last couple of things that
Right.
that Bruce just has to, you got to hear it before you say,
Yeah.
come join us.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to work at an extremely fast pace, right? You've got to be able to deliver like a year plan in 3 months, right? And you've got to be able to juggle 10 plates at one time rather than three or four, right? And you've got to be, I had a CHRO at a PE-backed company says, you've got to be comfortable with having 5 initiatives, 5 to-dos this week, and then you only even get to 2 or 3. And then the next week, guess what? There's a brand new 5 initiatives. So you've got to be very comfortable with chaos and that kind of thing. So if that makes sense. So and
That's
then for
perfect.
me, yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, if you're a CEO looking to hire somebody in an emerging company, the ideal person is somebody who has done it before, right? So and that's our deal when we recruit candidates for CEOs in this space and PE partners in the space. Find somebody who's done it at least once, maybe twice. It's a big risk if you're taking that shot for that 20-year P&G guy or gal and bring them over. It's a risk. It's a risk.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a question. So, what comes to my mind is when you're a big company guy, how important is being an entrepreneur? Because these small emerging brand founders, they've created this. They're obviously have an most, not all, have an entrepreneurial spirit. So if you're a big corporate guy that's been doing it for 20 years, How important is that to have that entrepreneurial spirit? And if you're a founder, how do you find that out if they really do or not? Because it's really easy, as you can probably say, Hayes, to say, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm ready to, you know,
Right, right,
go in a different direction."
right. Yeah, I mean, I think great question, Tracy. I think it's if you're an executive in big CPG right now and you're pulling your hair out 80% of the time, not 20% of the time, then that's probably a sign, right? The pain, that's the other reason why in my survey, a lot of these executives leave big to go to small because they just can't take it anymore. They just can't
Hmm.
take the 2 year decision process
Yep.
for, building a factory. They just can't take the fact that decisions are made and take forever to be effective. One executive I know said, "We are an ocean liner, right? We are so slow. We are an ocean liner, and when we try to turn, it just takes forever to turn the ocean liner and get a new direction." She said, "The problem, I don't mind working for a company that's an ocean liner. The problem is the executive team and the board think we're a speedboat. So this is when, so that they're not even self-aware. And so
Right.
this is when she left and went to emerging PE backed. So there's all different cases, right? There's all different cases of this, but I think if you're an executive who's been 25 years at big CPG, you've got a great increasing levels of responsibility. You have to ask yourself, why now? Why now
Hmm.
are you considering going small, right? And check with people that know you, love you, have worked with you, can be honest with you, and give you candid because once you go over there, it's really tough. It's really
Hmm.
tough.
Yeah.
So
It's not for the faint of heart, correct? Especially if
it's
you're been with a
no,
large company for a long time. So let's talk a little bit more about that as we get into topic number three is what do you think the biggest, and you kind of talked about, what do these executives have to think about? And then your big question is why now, which is a great one. But what have you seen as the biggest hurdles executives have experienced going from large CPG to smaller?
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest hurdle is just not being aware and not being able to handle the pace, right?
Mhm.
How quickly things move and how quickly decisions are made and how there's no place to hide, right? So you're responsible for your functional area and then some, right? So there's not a lot of help, there's not a lot of support. So it's kind of all hands on deck. If an SVP of supply chain has a problem at one of their co-mans, they're going to the co-man, right?
Right.
They're going to the co-man themselves and they're walking the floor. It's like now you could have a VP of manufacturing at Mars or Campbell's or Kraft Heinz, and they're like, "What? I'm not. No, my people do that."
Right.
So it is definitely a mindset. And generally speaking, the really good ones, in my experience, the effective ones who make the transference, they do it within the first 10 to 15 years of their career. They don't wait longer than that.
Right.
They start feeling the pain during that 10 to 15 years, and this is I
Mhm.
can't do this anymore.
One of the things you said was really important, and I wrote a note here is you have to be willing to do the work. So if you're at a big company and you have, like you said, two or three people that'll go to the plant if there's a problem, now that person is you. And so I
Yeah,
think that executive has to say, or that person has to say, okay, yeah, if I have to get on a plane tomorrow to go fix this, I have to be self-aware enough to know that, yes, that's what I'm going to need to do. And I'm okay with that. It's not,
right,
that task is not below me.
right. Yeah,
Would you
we
agree with
we
that statement?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And it's a must. And I had a CEO, a friend of mine who worked with PE firms his whole career. He's retired now. We did a CFO search for him, and we were sending in the CFO in to meet the private equity folks as the final round. And this individual, the CEO, told me, he said, "Now, Hayes, you make sure you tell this executive to be ready for his plan starting tomorrow." In other words, these PE guys, and they're not unique. They'll say, "Look, if we were to
Mhm.
hire you today, Tracy, and you were to start tomorrow, what would be the first three things you would do? And so it's like that's it. That's how fast they're
Oh yeah.
working. And they're also wanting to they want people who already see themselves in the seat, right? Through the research they've done on the company, through the research
Hmm.
they've done on the job spec, they're excited about it. So they've already thought about ideas, and that's another reason why these PE guys ask. And so I obviously prep my candidates for that. That's how quick. Like if you were joining, a multi-billion-dollar company, that's not
They're like, oh, we have a week orientation. We're going to show you where your desk is. We're going to
right.
introduce you around. Hey, let's have lunch.
Right. Here's your laptop. Yeah, all that. Yeah, no, it's just a different world now. Um, the people that I respect and people that I look up to that have been as CEOs in this war in the PE backed world, there's a certain there's a certain addiction to it. There's a certain like in a good way, right? Hey,
Hmm.
well, this is fun,
Right.
knowing that, when it does work out, it's really fun. And even when it doesn't work out, it's still, you gave it a shot and you're making decisions for all the right reasons, right? In a smaller company, generally, you're making decisions for the betterment of the business, as opposed to in a larger organization, it might be for one board member, it might be for Wall Street, it might be for the analysts, right? So you just it's a little different. But as Jack Welch used to say back in the day, he used to say, "What does every big company want to be? Excuse me, what does every small company want to be? Big." And every big company wants to act small, right? So
Right.
there's nothing wrong with being big and being a part of big if that's your thing. Nothing wrong with it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So go ahead, Bruce.
No, no, finish up, Trace.
No, I was just going to ask, so what is you think the number one hurdle or struggle that these senior executives struggle with as they move to a smaller company?
Um, Again, I think it's the pace of
Hmm.
work. I think it's the request of private equity on deliverables, right? It's because
Right.
they're insistent on deliverables, those type things. I think it's just some of the things I've already shared, but that's it. Just pace,
Yeah.
quickness, doing everything on your own, not having a team to help you, those type things. And I think the key around that is vetting those people out to make sure that you're getting the right people in place. And
Hmm.
one way is to find people who have done it and successfully. And then as a candidate, you want to make sure to thine own self be true, as Shakespeare once said. You want to make sure you're doing something
Hmm.
that you want to do and you're cut out to do. And you're not
Yeah.
just doing it because, oh, I'm jealous of my neighbor because he just cashed out on a $5 million
Right.
deal.
And
Yep,
I would
yep.
think I would think one of the two things I had written down too on some notes is, and maybe speak to this about maybe if do they struggle with less resources and less support. So maybe they came from a
Yeah,
big CPG and they had five people working under them, and now they've got one. They used
right.
to have a $50 million marketing budget. Now they have a $5 million budget. What's your experience been with that? Is that also things to think about?
Definitely. Yeah, no, that's definitely some things that individuals have to think about. And I think if hiring managers and if executives at PE-backed companies are smart, they'll lay the cards on the table and they say, this is what it's like here.
Hmm.
This is what you can expect. And, so and go from there. But yeah, I mean, look,